Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kaylee Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur podcast. And I'm joined today by the fabulous Jo Warwick, who is a mentor and energy healer with a wealth of experience. And we are going to be diving into abundance flow in business and life. Jo, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the podcast today.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to meet you. We were just chatting before this. It's just so wonderful to be connected to another Brit. And we were just finding out that we actually live rather close to each other. So it's just so nice to be bringing not only my own experience, but also bringing the British flag, us waving the flag in this industry. So yeah, really excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for coming on, darling. I would love, first of all, before we dive into abundance flow and talking all things business and life, would love to know a little bit more about you. Are you up for sharing a little bit about your journey and your story with our listeners?
Very much so. Very much so. Where do you want me to start?
Tell us a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur and how you kind of got into where you are now.
So I think I was always entrepreneurial by spirit because, so if people don't know, I started my life training for the Olympics. Yeah. And so I was already someone who had big dreams. I knew from watching International Velvet when I was a kid going, I want to ride for my country. The other passion at that time was also being on stage and wanting to do musicals. Now, my brother at that time was quite a famous music producer, and he told me I wouldn't be good enough. Never listen to your brothers. That's my first piece of advice. Because that always sat in my mind. And although I had success and fun and enjoyed being on stage, it led me to follow my dreams as the Olympics. So I was like, right, I'm going to go and do that. And that background gave me such a foundation, not all in good ways, but I have an unbelievably amount of tenacity and stickability, and also learning that when you fall off, you will get back up again. And so you have to have very big dreams to achieve something like that, because it's not just chasing something that of going, oh, I want my gold medal. There are very stages, many stages to achieve that. You have to dedicate an awful lot. And I did. I dedicated 20 plus years of my life to not getting there. But what all of that achieved through me was building my own inner strength and my own passion for having the life that I want. And more than anything, when I had a riding accident that set me free, really, from something that wasn't very good for me or rather toxic, actually set me free and set me on a new path as a psychotherapist, because by then, when I had this accident, I got PTSD, and it led me off to discover more about me. And it was from that journey of not following my joy of being on stage and performing, which would have taken me on a different journey, but probably still end up in the same space, was to understand that it was okay to be me. I was born with gifts. So as a kid, I remember the first time I watched The Matrix. It's probably the best way to say this, because as a kid, I could literally see energy. I've been able to see energy in different ways. Now I feel it more. I learned to shut some of it off, not because it's bad, but because it's hard to function when you can see things that other people can't. And so I was very open, very receptive, very aware. And I know there are many names for it now. I don't tend to give it names as empaths and things like that, because I've learned that there are different stages in your capacity to flow energy. And as we were talking before this, we were laughing because I was literally just melting into a puddle because we met in a, both of us are holding bigger energy. And so it's like, boom, okay, but it's okay now. It doesn't, I just melt for a minute, which is fine. So all of this, I was learning on a journey of kind of like, I want to have more. I want to know more about myself. I want to be here in the world. And I know I have big dreams. I have desires. I have interests. And I was also never really given the space to be the intelligent woman that I am. So my childhood gave me everything that I didn't need or want or fight against. So although my parents are lovely, there were lots of things that happened to me as a child that should not have happened. And yet there were glimmers of gold in every space that led me on my journey, like breadcrumbs. And so I was like, I've got to be free. And freedom was always the driver for me. And I know it is for a lot of entrepreneurs. They think that the freedom will come with money. They think that the freedom will come by success. It does not. Freedom is an internal job, and you have to feel free first. And over the last, gosh, as I said, 20 plus years as a psychotherapist, as an energy healer, as I'm a love psychologist, I have books, all the things. I have done all the things, as we were laughing at the beginning. But in that time of working with men, women, children, teenagers, families, couples, I have worked with everybody. I kept coming to this core bit that it has to come from the inside. And my energy stuff was a driver because it was the divine part of me. It was the part of me that had this connection to source, God, love. And it was this pull to go, I have to be free. I have to be free. I have to put myself out there. And at times in my life when I was so aligned, when I broke free from training for the Olympics and I was stepping into my sexuality, by then I had got very cocky. After I came out of kind of the phases of damage from surgeries and all of those things, I started to become really like, well, fuck it, I've done the thing that I wanted to do, let's go and have some fun. And so I got really into owning, as you do at that age, in your 20s. I'd never had a childhood, I was like, woohoo, I've been training all of my life, and now I hadn't had the fun that I needed to have. So I was like, right, everything's going to be fun. If I go and do this, it's going to be fun, I'll do that. And what I learned in that, now what I realize is that there were mindset bits in there that were really good. That meant I went out and said, fuck it, I'll try that. And it was the era of startups. So I was living in Cambridge, and the first time around that the internet went into its bubble and boom, and I rode that wave. And I went from the gift of the gab that I had been of selling and was talking to sponsors and all of that, to suddenly being like, oh, I could do that. And I'd say yes to anything. And then I was in these startups. The next thing I know, I'm living in San Francisco. And the next thing I know that I'm, at the leading front of some companies. Then I'm being poached to be, sales and marketing director for another company. And then I'm this, and then I'm that. And I was like, whoa, this is a ride. And it was a bubble. And I was mixing, we used to laugh, invitations to millionaire balls and things like this. And if there was a place, my timing was divine timing, like perfect timing. I'm not sure it was always divine, but if there was a party, I would be at it. I was at red carpet dues. I was mixing with celebrities. I was at the ambassador's ball. I was at, if there was something, I wanted it, I'd be there. And I was manifesting left, right, and center. And I was always in the right place, always at the right time. And yet, I was miserable. In parts of me, I felt so disconnected. I could manifest from my sexual power, from my magnetism, all of my brain. I was learning to discover my power, but I couldn't find a focus. So although I was loving being entrepreneurial and using these skills within the startups, and it led me to create my first company. I created my own first company. I was mid to late 20s. And I created a company in Cambridge, and it radically grew, and I had 6 people working for me, and yet I still had no idea how to pay myself. So I had this incredible business where people were just paying thousands to have somebody come in. And what I ended up creating was this really successful cleaning company, which wasn't what it started at. It was supposed to be something else. And I had these housekeepers that would go in, and it was hugely successful. And yet I paid myself nothing because I had no sense of how to value myself. So I had a second job in the pub. So I basically facilitated, I lived with my folks, I facilitated everybody else. I hadn't learned that about being an entrepreneur. And so that was my first lesson in entrepreneurship. Learn to pay yourself and value your skills. And from that space, I then failed because I felt like a failure. I couldn't survive. I couldn't sustain the company. But then I sold it off to the women who worked for me. So I broke it up, sold it off, and gave them everything. And that was that. And from that space of all these experiences, I had my wake up. And I went to Cornwall for a weekend with a girlfriend. I got unengaged, and I had clung to my first love like a raft, I think, in a world that seemed a bit like, oh. And I got unengaged. I had lots of fun for a while. And then I was like, I am soulless. I am soulless. And I feel very far from my calling, from myself, from my God, from my divine, from what I knew on the inside. And so I had this wake up. I went to Cornwall, fell madly in love with Cornwall. And it took me 2 years to work out how to live there. But in that time, I devoured every book. I started with The Alchemist. I read every one of Paulo Coelho's books. I then read everything I could get my hands on. I went through the whole of the Rich Dad Poor Dad stuff, anything that drew me to understand myself. And that was what then led me to become a psychotherapist. And as I landed in Cornwall and spent some time sort of surfing and being myself and just doing that, I felt very called to start my training. And I started with Relate, and that journey then put me on a new path. What then started as something as I wanted to have that understanding, I then I literally have no idea how I collapsed time, because I did. I collapsed time because I went from, I don't know how I achieved all of the things that I do. I don't know how that it was like I jumped into somebody I used to be in a different life, and I loved every minute of it. I was hungry, and it was this passion, this entrepreneurial passion that meant I wanted to learn something, but I wanted to grow something. And I am a gardener. I like to grow. I like to bake. I like to cook. Everything about me is I want to grow things, which is a very cool facet for being an entrepreneur. Create and grow. And in that time, given permission of going, I had this dream, this vision when I was still in Cambridge and before I left. And I saw something on TV, and I was like, it was when they used to have a nanny come into the house with all these kids.
Yes.
Do you remember the program? Yeah, Super Nanny.
Super Nanny, that's it.
Yeah. And, but the English version, it wasn't Super Nanny, it was the English version, and they went into a house. And I remember going, I want to do that. 5 years later, I was a child and family psychotherapist. I was already on that journey, even though I hadn't completed my full training at that point. I was already within Relate working as a child and family therapist. And it was like, I have literally the amount of hours, the amount of time. I don't know where it went. I don't know how I did it. I didn't get into burnout. I loved every minute. I was just absorbing and being and creating and rapidly doing exactly what I'd done in Cambridge with the business stuff. I just rapidly went up the ranks. And before I knew it, I was at the top of my game. I was the equivalent of a heart surgeon. I created this incredible practice in the UK. And yet I was like, this is not where I want to be. And I was like, I want to take this online. And now this is like, oh, because I'd had the background of being online, I then felt this call. I was still not able to pay myself well. I still was like charging well, but losing money left, right, and center. This is a really big pattern for me. I had to learn about money. And I know that this is something big for you. And it was never about money for me. It's always been about value. Value and my own ability to stand in my power. And so I was craving freedom, but not giving myself freedom, which is like, oh, what a lovely conflicting energy there. Yeah. But in that journey and in that process, I was like, I want to take this bigger. I want to be bigger. I want to be bigger. And at the time, people didn't do online programs. It was a very new world, coaching online. And I started this thing called Rediscover the Magic. And I was blogging at that time. I was blogging for about nearly 8 years. You can find me still on all places like Tiny Buddha and Mind Unleashed and all that. And that's how I grew my business. And as we were saying before, I was kind of mixing in the world of Gabby Bernstein and Nikki Sharp and so many women who are Andrea Schulman. All these people were people who were in my world. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I grew this amazing company, Rediscover the Magic. And I had clients all over the world. My first program, I mean, I've listened to some of the videos and stuff. And I think this is so important to share with anybody who's got a fear of starting. I look at some of my videos now, I'm so shit.
Going back to
Quality is shit. The sound is appalling, and yet the work was phenomenal, and women were still getting incredible results. And I created something that was, you know, a digital program, and then working with me one-to-one, and people were finding me all over the world. And still, I didn't charge myself enough. I mean, I think the pricing that I had then, and I think, Jesus, you know, what would have been different if I had charged myself correctly? But it was an amazing time. And that led me again to reach a point with my soul that was like, I'm still not sustained. I'm not doing the right thing. So I burnt it all down to the ground, which it can also be an entrepreneurial trait. I'm going to start again. Fuck it. And so that led me then to take some time out. I wanted to be a writer for 2 years. And I thought that would be where I'd find more peace for my soul. And I did what I tend to do, which is I am an unbelievable high achiever. And not always successfully, but an unbelievable high achiever. And so I spent 2 years writing and published 2 books. And that was where The Big Book of Love was first birthed, based on 40 years of my life and all the kind of knowledge I knew at that point. And again, I would say to people, if you have a desire to do something like that, I was like, I just took it from all my blogging and then built on it. And I'd already been creating it over that time. I'd done so much writing, and I'd had this dream of writing this book, but full of typos, full of, you know, even though it'd been edited, and yet I still put it out there, and yet it's still sold, and it's sold all over the world, and it continued to sell. Until 2020, I decided to write a second edition in the COVID. I felt like there was still stuff on my soul I hadn't done and hadn't talked enough about sex, which I felt was a really big chunk of it, which I talk happily about sex a lot with my clients. And the all the chunks, and I talked a lot more about masculine and feminine energies and all of those things. So I was weaving more of my experience. So I brought more of that into it in the second edition, and it continued to sell. And actually through COVID, I lived off book sales for that time. But that entrepreneurial journey then led me to want to do something else. And I was like, I want to step out. I'm not entertained. I'm not driven. I'm not satisfied. So I actually then started a completely different company, and I went into the law field, and I started doing estate planning and things like that. And then I built a very successful sort of franchise, not totally a franchise, but it's kind of part of that. Is a company that I was part of, and I built a company in Cornwall and Devon that they'd never had before, and that was very successful. And I created a name down there and brand, and I did lots of talking at the WI, and which I loved. It was so fun, and lots of presentations, lots of talking, and it gave me a chance to step out and think, actually, you know, learn that I could build businesses, and that I can build businesses. And in total, I think I've had now four or five companies, and that led me to then start becoming actually more focused on business. In my business, I had done some at that point, but I was much more focused on health, love, and relationships at that point. And then I got more into working with women who had companies, because I could see that the energy was the same. I had already built other people's companies when I was fast tracking, and I built successful businesses on some level, not so much on the money side for myself. I was really good at paying other people or getting the money and then losing it. But I then started working in that way. And then that led me to become a consultant. So for a while, I did business consulting for 7-figure businesses, 6-7-figure businesses, which I enjoyed. I put on the suit for a while, enjoyed that. And again, it was another form of being entrepreneurial, but it wasn't the right fit for me. All the way through this, the biggest success, the biggest satisfaction always came when I did the energy work with my clients, through my work. But I had to clear some guilt around manifesting from sexual power only. and at that time in Cambridge. But I always saw that the fastest results that I got for my clients. And in that time, I returned to my gifts and talents as a kid. And I started to learn, I didn't learn, I started channeling light language and sound tuning and all of those things. So along that side, this very big part of me started coming forward. And I kept trying to squish it. And I kept trying to be somebody else and do the classic entrepreneurial thing of going, oh, they seem to be successful over there. I'll do it their way. And, we all do it. We all do it. And yet we, kept coming back to my own path, my own path, my own path, my own path. And that takes a lot of faith. An awful lot of faith, doesn't it? And when you're like, oh my God, is this going to happen? And does it work? And oh my God, it is working. And is it going to sustain? And all of those things. But through all of that journey, which isn't over yet and far from it, but I would say that the entrepreneurial spirit to grow and create is always within me. And I don't think being entrepreneurial is just about being in business. I think it's about creating a life. And for me, that's what it's always been, the driver of my own life, the creator of my own life. And stepping into that power to be yourself, because I truly believe we all have a blueprint with it all in us. We all have a divine spark within us. We all have a soul that's ready to guide us, which the reason I wrote the Big Book of Love was because I felt that there was no manual. And so I created the manual for myself. The Big Book of Love is a manual because it's Big Book of Love, loving yourself, dating with love, loving relationships. But it's really about all love. It's about spiritual love. It's about love with your children. It's about raising children, having healthy relationships. It's all of the gamut. But it's about igniting within you that you've already got it. It's already there. And so, yeah, the journey has been highs. And I don't want anybody to think that it has been all highs. There has been so many lows that I have learned from, so many lows that have been painful, brought to my knees at points. And yet when you tell the story, you can see the evolution of the expansion. Like all things in life, it's better when you look back at the story. But the holding on in the darkness and then seeing the lights, that is a cool part to being an entrepreneur, that helps you get to being your journey. And then stepping away from this idea of going, oh, but they're doing it their way, or they're better than me because they've reached this certain figure. That's been the biggest learning for me, is that my worth, my success has nothing to do with the people I mix with. I have mixed with royalties, celebrities, all the people you're supposed to think, other Olympians supposed to think are better. And I have found a lot of people soulless. And then I have met absolute gems who I've thought, oh, yeah. I have met people who were my dream to meet and have been so disappointed. And then I've met people who I thought were absolutely extraordinary, who are so quiet and so different. So I don't think any of it matters, but it's learning to have that capacity within yourself. And it is a journey to do that, to know it's within you. So, yeah. Well, there we go. That's our time.
No, it's incredible. What an incredible journey as well. And thank you so much, Jo, for sharing your story and, all of the aspects, or quite a few of the aspects, and the different things, different lessons, the different things that you actually took on as an entrepreneur. But wow, just wow. Let's dive into some of this abundance, because I feel like this is such a great topic. And with all of your expertise, I think we can really help our listeners here a little bit. But the first thing I think is what is best to kind of tune into or talk about is actually tuning into that abundance. What does it actually mean to tune into abundance in order to support us as female entrepreneurs to, attract more flow in our business and in our lives?
Absolutely. I think we can go even further back with the question of what is abundance.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get very confused. So as an example, I sat this morning on the beach looking at, when I went out on the beach, it was grey, it was misty. I was still showing up for a swim because I'm not just a sunshine swimmer. And I'm sat on the beach, having had my swim. And the sun is now radiating over my head, because as I'm swimming, I am surrendering. And I often think it's the greatest way that I know I have aligned with myself. And when the sunlight shines on my head, and it does all the time. If I go to a place and I'm guided to a place and the sun comes out, I'm like, I love you too, thank you. Because for me, that feels like I'm just in this conversation for that moment.
Yes.
Abundance is a state of being.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a destination. It is an overflow that is connected to your soul. Gosh, even talking about this makes me want to cry. I can feel the emotions coming up because I feel so connected in what I'm saying.
Mm.
It is that opening of, or the shedding of the lies and illusions of this being you think you are.
Mm.
And so it's like dropping a dress that's too tight, or a suit that's too tight, and getting naked with your soul and the world and your life in that moment. And we all know these moments. It's that feeling of suddenly going, like you can breathe and there's
Yes.
space. Maybe it's walking the dog. Maybe it's sitting in the sun. Maybe it's dancing, moving your body. Maybe it's cooking. We all have these moments. Maybe it's doing art. I know a lot of people I've worked with do very good at art, and
Yes.
that is an expression. That flow feeling, first it's an expansion, it's a freedom, all constrictions and lies and illusions. You're both in your body and out of your body at the same time, because you realize that you're more than your body, you're bigger than your body. But you are also connected to your body. You start to feel this sense that your body is light and fluid. And as you learn to breathe and flow into that, there's a sense of ease and grace. Everything becomes better timing. You turn up in the best places, as I talked about earlier. You meet the right people. It could be that you're inspired to pop to the shops and then you have a conversation and it leads you to somewhere else, or you meet somebody else. You start to move with a sense of, even if you can hear it in my voice, there is a spaciousness, there is a slowing compared to the conversation we just had. As we tap into that energy, it's like the world is abundant. There is energy everywhere. There is flow everywhere. The thing that we crave the most is the space to be ourselves, to flow love through our bodies, through our cells, through our being, because that's when we're fully connected to our divine self. It's who we are. We want to create and use that. That's what we know in our souls. That's what we know in our subconscious. That's what we know. We want to use that life force energy. It can be called God force, life force, source, universe, divine. It's a energy that is tangible, movable, and it's what we use to create. We create it, yes, on a thought process, but more importantly, it must flow through ourselves. And when we're in that flow, we enter what's called the soul economy, which is then this abundance flow of you meet the people, you meet the conversation, you meet the money. It's all in the same space. It just of the energy of it's just a, no, in the olden days it'd be, here, have a chicken, I'll give you a pie. It's the same thing, but it's no longer focusing on this. If I removed my life force and we thought for a moment, oh, I didn't have my life force, I'm suddenly like, oh my God, I have to work really, really twice as hard, 3 times as hard to achieve something. And it will be like, I have to get permission, or I have to get recognition, or I have to get acceptance, or I have to get the gold medal for somebody to say, I'm worthwhile, I'm lovable, you're seen. Because then you won't feel you'll die, because when you have no life force flowing through you, when you have very little, you feel like you're going to die. That's reality. You're disconnected. Now, the first fact is we're never, ever, ever disconnected. But we do have incredible blinkers. We have this amazing connection to be able to, abilities that we learn to shut down and put these barriers in place. And the only being on this entire existence that is stopping you from having you in your full form and abundance and the flow and all the things that can come from that economy is you. Love loves you. Done deal. The energy of life force loves you because you are simply an extension of life, of love, of God, of source, divine. That's it. It's a done deal. And the million ways that people have tried to express that through religion, through art, through poems, it's a done deal. Yeah. But it's a personal journey. And when you can accept it, when you start to do it and you start to be able to go, I'm going to let go of the lies and the illusions, and I'm going to tune into that, you can expand the amount of time that you're able to stay there. And that is the purpose. It's how long can I stay there in this state? Because you aren't going to stay there all the time. You have to step in and out of it to appreciate it at its best. You have to step in and out of what feels like a dream, what feels like a space of absolute love and comfort, because we need that contrast. People try so much in the spiritual community to say contrast is bad. Contrast is absolutely essential. Otherwise you'll create nothing. You can't have just unicorns farting sunshine. It doesn't work like that. You have to have, this idea of, oh, if I lived constantly in my spiritual being, but that disregards the divinity that is your body, that this fucking miracle that we are existing in every day that you're here. Your body is something unbelievably incredible miracle that just science still doesn't have any comprehension because it's a miracle. It's an ever forming. So there's this learning to live it, to use it, not just something that's in your mind, but to embody and feel it. That's what it means when we hear those words, embody. It doesn't mean that you're going around going, fuck, look at me, aren't I magnificent? Yeah. It's not all the pictures on social media. It's not all the ways of, it's an embodiment means that I am able to sustain holding that capacity of energy through my being without shutting it down. And in simpler terms, we could say it's embodying the capacity that I am loved and I don't need to shut that down, that I am already worthy of that, which is why my book was called The Big Book of Love. I called it Love for a very long time, but it's all the same thing. You could give it a different names. It doesn't matter. We have different levels of beliefs and ideas about that energy. Some people have such conflicting feelings around the word God. Other people have it around the goddess. Other people have it around the universe. Some people have it around divinity. Other people have it around souls. It's finding your sweet spot and then softening the edges around things and finding your language that feels and resonates with your soul, because we've all got past life experiences. We've all got ancestral experiences, and we've all got life experiences that have reaffirmed stories within us, but we don't have to stay trying to fix them. We can just drop them and step into the abundance and step into that energy and learn how to release it and resolve it and dissolve it and cleanse it and clear it so that it passes through your body with less resistance. And often what I called love in my book the WD-40, or the sink unblocker, because it is like that. Our job is to let the flow of abundance flow through our being with little resistance. That means you need to clear the crap. It's like you can't have your sink blocked or your toilet blocked, or your or in the same way being emotionally constipated or not. You have to let your full system, your light system, your body system, your digestive system, a lot of people block themselves, their sexual system, flow from your mind body soul energy all the way through you. That is abundance. It's not that you're not perfect until you do that. It's not that you can't have abundant flow until you do that. It's simply like someone's turning up the thermometer on your heating. So you start at a colder place because you haven't got that much life force, and then you can turn it up and you get more comfortable with it. In the Big Book of Love, I talk about it as climatizing, like if you were changing from one country to another. So maybe you were born in Iceland or somewhere really cold, and you knew that you were the fire. And often for a lot of people, when they're children, they come as the light. So if they are in a cold environment, their family may be a cold environment, who have forgotten and disconnected from their own energy, that they look to you, and which is what Tangled is all about, the brilliant.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sucking the life. I've used the mummy knows best song so many times with clients. But that, you've come with all this energy, and everybody goes, let me suck off you, life force. Oh, yummy. So you believe then that it's unsafe to be you. You believe it's unsafe to hold the light. It's, people need you, and they take it. So all of these things that you program into yourself. But once you step beyond your childhood, and you now have the capacity to thrive and not just survive, because every survival mechanism is a survival mechanism. You're here, you did it, well done. You got there. But once you can step beyond survival and start to stand on your own 2 feet, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, as an adult, in all ways, and that doesn't mean the same things physically as psychologically, but once you start, you can start to choose to awaken, which is what this is, the turning up the dial to abundance and letting it become more present in your life through techniques, morning routines, self-love routines, affirmations, places that you love, being out in nature. These are all good foundational places, but they in themselves are not the answer. They are tools. So they are practices until you, like learning to drive, get better at it. And they have a level, which is like The Secret. The Secret is a fantastic book, but it's an entry point. It's not manifesting or law of attraction in its whole entirety. So if you feel like it didn't work, it's because you weren't at your right level. Maybe you were already beyond that. And for a lot of people, they are. They were like, why isn't this working for me? It's because it's not your playing field. It may be you've already gone beyond that, and your soul already knows that. So it doesn't work for you because you can't wear an outfit that's too small. It just hurts, So finding your tools is part of your journey. It speeds up your process of it, allowing more energy to flow through your body. So finding things that light you up, turn you on, get you excited, be in joy, help you to have the energy to do the work of releasing, resolving, dissolving, cleansing, and clearing the things that are holding you back, the old stories. But like me, I got stuck in that process. I mean, I've taken the long road to remember who I was, even though I was born with all the gifts, because it was learning to be able to say to people, yeah, that's not going to work. You're not in that space. That doesn't work for you. You're missing the key. So as you bring more of that energy in, as you find your sweet spots and you work with people who can help you on your journey, because there is no failing in getting help to open up.
No, of course. Always ask for help.
Always ask for help. The simplest way I have tried to find, and I do try to find simple ways to describe and understand something that's so metaphysical, it's, and intangible, but the pumping up your tire on your car, makes your journey smoother.
Yes.
Always. If you have a deflated tire, every bump, every difficulty in the road is going to be painful. And eventually it goes pop. Your tire is your energy battery, the level of energy and abundance you're willing to flow through your body and through your life. So you won't believe you are, as an example, but you won't believe you may say, oh, I want 7 figures. I want a 7-figure business. And yet your container, that is you and your energy field, may be so far from that capacity that you won't actually believe you're able to have that, because your cup, your tire, is so depleted, or not even in the vicinity of 7 figures. So then you're like, well, there's nothing wrong with the vision beyond the vision. Absolutely have that, but you've got to tune, which is what I talk about. Attuning the frequency through your body means simply attuning and allowing the amount of energy flow of life force through your being. That's it. It means tuning like a radio dial, your mind, your body, your energy, your cells, they are physical cells, to vibrate at the level that says, oh, I'm now in the vicinity of maybe 5 figures. I'm now in the vicinity of 6 figures or 7 figures. Now, it might be, in some people's cases, it's they really want to be married and be with the love of their life, but their beliefs, their lack of, I don't want to go too much into beliefs because they're restrictions, but their energy flow container through their whole being of abundance may be so far from that level of relationship. So instead, they have to be in the vicinity of a relation that's going to make them more available, more open, more able. I know yourself, congratulations, you just got engaged. So that's really wonderful. I saw that online. Wasn't that right? Was I?
Yes. Yeah.
But when we meet our soul partner, and I did this for a long time, it was a big part of, the work that I did, but learning to know that you have to be in soul partnership first with yourself. You have to be in that aligned soul frequency enough, not totally, enough, just enough to let love in, to let love do the work, to surrender, to feel safe, so that you believe. But you cannot believe when you're so depleted in energy life force. So when you get more energy start to come through your body, and you've been doing these activities, these tools, you feel more hope.
Yes.
Hope is the key of belief. When you don't have that frequency running through you, you feel doubt. And your body's telling you, it's going, I don't have enough energy, so we haven't got the capacity to do this. So you start to feel doubt and fear and anxiety. They're all signs just telling you, you haven't been letting love in, you're not letting the life force in, you're not taking care of yourself. So when you start to take care of yourself, when the energy starts to come up, hope rises.
Yeah.
Love rises. And suddenly you then start to be able to have more vision and more, belief about, what do I want to then do with this life force through my creation? And whatever that creation is, for some people, I was on a podcast the other day for a craft podcast. It's women who have, businesses around handmade stuff, crafting stuff.
Yes.
Whether it's in that place, or maybe you want to be, a business mentor, or maybe you want to be a gardener, maybe you want to be a chef. It doesn't really matter. It's your expression of your soul. A friend of mine, I watched her, and it's so beautiful to see where she is. She does this beautiful singing stuff now, and her singing, she's channeling her light language through singing, and she's creating all these choirs, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But for a while I watched her go off and put somebody else's hat on and become I teach about business. And it was like, on my level, I could feel the energy was so off. It was juxtaposed, and it was so wrong. And I see that with so many people that I've worked with, so easily being able to quickly see, and that is my gift of being able to go, your frequency is off. Like, it's not about the marketing, it's not about the pictures, it's not about how beautiful you look or how shit you look, or it's not about what you wear. Those things can help, but if the energy is off, your frequency, your tuning, just like music, same thing. If you suddenly get the bum note, you're not going to manifest from that place. You're not going to have that flow, because it's not about going, thank you very much for the £5,000 this. Thank you very much for the £1,000,000. Thank you very much that I've got a great day. It's not about that. It's not about, I'm so grateful, for having this, this, and this. It's not about that. It's about simply how peaceful, how easy, how juicy, how aligned do I feel in my creation, in me, and in the ease and grace of creating the thing I want to give birth to. And like all women, to give birth to a child, you must relax. And it's exactly the same. It's not about not doing, it's about coming from that place of then flowing that abundant flow through you. So it gets met in the world, because other people then go, oh, I like the energy of that. Thanks very much. I'll come and join you.
And that's it, isn't it? It's definitely when you put out the right energy, as we know, again, people can read your energy. They can feel it. That so much can be said for those who, who present themselves, or how they present themselves, and the energy that we obviously bring to the table. Fascinating, just absolutely fascinating what you've dived into there, and absolutely love such in-depth description, but also giving some examples, because I think even myself, just listening to what you're saying is just incredible with how all of this works. What kind of advice would you give to those people, should I say, sorry, that potentially might struggle to connect with, you know, a sense of abundance, for example, even if they're, I don't know, maybe potentially they're going through a challenging time, or in business, maybe they're trying to create something or put something out there. But is there any advice that you'd give to people who might struggle to connect with that sense of abundance?
You're always going to have to go within. You cannot shift. You can't create, well, you can create from a place of fear and lack. You absolutely, we are already manifesting all the time, like all the time. So you can create from that place, but would you want to? Because when you're doing it from that frequency, that energy, that's what you're going to get back. But I think there's one thing that you said as well that is a really good answer to this, of saying, firstly, understand that the energy you put out is not the same energy for everyone.
Yes.
So when people say, oh, you've just got to get into positive vibes, fuck off. You really don't. Okay? It is not about positive or negative. It's about depth and the difference between if you listen to somebody playing chopsticks on the piano or listening to Rachmaninoff, if the expansion and depth of the music that is coming out of you, that is aligned with your particular soul. I'm going to say that again, okay?
Yes.
It is the absolute alignment with your soul that is the key, not thinking positive thoughts. These are important. Again, they are simply tools for you to learn you. So you are the thing you have to learn, you on the inside, your particular music that is all about what lights you up. But it's very important to also know how you are in grief, how you are in fear, how you are in guilt and shame, so that you're not afraid of the parts of you that some are survival mechanisms, some are stories that give you depth. Shame, I tried to suggest everybody just releases, because let's be honest, it hasn't got a purpose for much, but it's that depth of richness, you know, like a wine, you know, like a really good wine. You can buy cheap ass wine that's, you know, from your supermarket. Well, actually, some supermarket wines are very nice, but it, you know, a really weak red wine that has not been created or matured, you know, there's no depth to it. And so learning to take the time every day, every single day, giving yourself space, less is more. It's not about rushing around, because when you shift your mindset from thinking you're supposed to look to everything externally to you for the answer and looking internally, that's when you see the results. When you are attuned to the right harmonics of your own soul, so I'm going to say attuned to the right harmonics of your own soul, the universe aligns and you start to see the signs. So particularly in areas that you might have of your own life where you've been struggling, like I said, my story was about money for a long time. Attuning the harmonics of my own soul around money, so that you then bring money into alignment with the harmonics of your soul, the things that personal music, everything then exponentially grows. You get to be seen, you get to be heard, you get to do you get to be all those things, and people are like, yay. Not because, like all art, it is subjective. Everything is subjective. So it's not that you want to be liked and loved by everybody. It's that you want people who are going to like and love your art, your music from your soul. So not the literal music, whatever it is that you create has these harmonics, this frequency, and it's the people who go, oh, that speaks to me. And for some people, this podcast will be like music to their soul.
Yes.
They'll be like, oh, yeah, oh, I've been looking for this. No. Other people will hear it and it will sound like somebody is, I'm scratching nails down a blackboard. They will hear my voice and it will be so painful to hear, partly because they are not activated, but partly because it just isn't in alignment with their soul. So it's not good or bad, your journey wherever you're at, but it always has to come back to this. Do I want to create from a place of ease and grace? I always talk about this. Ease and grace is when you're in alignment. You are in alignment with your divinity. You're in alignment with your soul. You're in alignment with this harmonics of your expression, your perfect expression into the world. Knowing the tools to bring that out is essential. Knowing the tools to support that is essential. And which is where a lot of, particularly women, fall down in business, is that they don't know how to have the structure in place to support them doing that. Which is why in business, you need to have the masculine and the feminine, the riverbanks and the river. The riverbanks, the structure of your business, must also be in alignment with your river. It cannot be like, oh, well, I'll just do this funnel and it's all going to work for me. Or I'm going to show up in this way and have lots of pretty pictures taken of me and everybody will buy it. That doesn't work either. It has to be, you find your own structure, but it has to be a structure that feels deeply like entering a relationship that feels so supportive. Like,
yeah, definitely.
the difference for women when they know that they have this masculine energy around within themselves, externally, within their business, that feels like it's going, I love you and I'm going to support you and I'm here for you and I'm going to hold these boundaries and I worship you for who you are, but I'm also going to tell you when it's not right. That's very important too. So that the feminine flow, that harmonics, that creative force through you gets to come out in a really safe way because you're like, oh, I can do that. That feels really good. You don't have to wait for a man to do that. It's all about energy. But the masculine energy will absolutely attract, as well as the feminine energy will attract men into your life who absolutely honor that. It's automatic. So it's this playing with your own energy. So I'm not saying you have to stop and learn all this before you start your business. Absolutely not. The same though, as you're giving birth to a child, it's not like, oh, I got pregnant and then I've got a 14-year-old. It's not that either. It's you go through a gestation period. You go through, everything about then the birthing period, and then you've got a small baby, and then you've got a toddler, and then you've got a teenager, and then suddenly you've got an adult. It's a whole journey. And honoring yourself where you're at in that learning process, and then having the right tools that can collapse time, as I talked about earlier, collapsing time. I have a program that does that, but collapsing time and stepping in and speeding it up. But nothing will speed up the lessons that you have to learn. That's part of your soul journey. So you can move through those lessons quicker. You can bring them forward into your life quicker, but you still have to learn them. You can't bypass them. It's part of the experience for you to have depth to your abundance. You can't have that depth and richness without life experiences and lessons or growth, or because it's what makes your music so fucking brilliant, for you to show up. So it's no quick answer. It is a practice every day. It's about showing up. Like I said, I go cold water swimming even when it's not sunny, and I still find it exquisite. It is part of my practice of aligning with myself, my attunement, not your attunement, not somebody else's attunement. And just like music, you may be a big fan of R&B. I might be a big fan of the classical. We all get to like this. We all get to like different things, the same as there's different, different tastes of spices and I think life should be a buffet, and that's how I describe abundance. It's a buffet, and you get to walk up and decide all the bits that you like.
And you just touched on sort of daily practices, and obviously with your swimming as well in the morning as a great example. But is there anything that female entrepreneurs, that the listeners to this podcast can do in terms of daily practices? I know that you said everyone is different.
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically that people can do to stay grounded in love and connect with that flow of abundance?
Well, I mean, we're all going to say meditation, but meditation comes in many different forms. If you're new to it, of course, a practice is very good. But the key essence of meditation is just space and quiet. So giving yourself time, which is why I go swimming, partly because my nervous system suits a quick shock. And that is a very fast way of aligning your body when you hold a lot of energy. So cold showers are very good. Hot and cold treatments, warm showers, cold showers, hot, warm water, hot, cold. These things can help. Journaling, of course, but you have to be very careful that you don't end up getting stuck journaling about the problem. So I have a tool called Flip to Love. If anybody wants to check it out on my website, it's like $7. It's an experience that I use in all of my work, but you can shift your mind very quickly from being in a state of limitation. As I talked about, fear and all of those emotions are just a sign that you are not connected to love and abundance. That how to then, and actually on my Instagram, I think I've given an example as well of what I do in that practice, but being able to brain dump, emotionally dump everything, and then flip it quickly into a space of love, reconnecting to your soul. So you've got to shift your mind. You've got to recognize there are 4 wheels on your vehicle, so that's why it doesn't always work for people when they go, oh yes, but I've been thinking positive thoughts and I've been doing affirmations, but that's only your mind. That's one wheel. So if you don't take care of your body, it's very essential. This morning I've been cycling and I've had a swim. I'm a high frequency being, so I need to do a lot of exercise.
Yeah.
I recognize that suits my body. It keeps me calm, keeps my body in alignment. Other people, I sometimes do yoga. Other people find the yoga's enough. I recommend normally you should mix it up, but doing activities, dancing is always going to be a great way for everybody, pretty much. Singing and dancing, these things are wonderful. Doing things that then so you've got to think, oh, I've got a mind and I've got a body. And then how do I get the energy flow? Well, that's learning to flow that through. You'll feel it, but you've got to be aware of the learning how to feel it. So you'll feel it like sometimes it's hot and it's like the ocean, sometimes it's hot, wild and raging, and other times it's just calm and peaceful. And there are different activities that have to be done in that. And I do actually inside, so these 2 little taster things I have, Flip to Love and then Abundance. And I talk about and show in there that you can absolutely, inside Abundance, again, I don't know, it's about $33 or something like that. It might be a bit more, but they're tasters to know and experience for yourself of going, oh, these are, earth, wind, fire, and water. When do I need to do this for this energy? Because we have all of that inside of us. Sometimes we're fire, sometimes we're earthy. And when you do the wrong things at the wrong time, it's not going to do anything. So a practice like yoga, when you are feeling earthy, is not going to raise your energy frequency and not open you up to abundance. Not even doing hatha yoga, doing Bikram yoga, which I love, and may bring out some energy, but it's tending to be more grounded. So you don't want to do a grounded exercise when you're feeling earthy. You need to do a fire exercise that will bring up your energy. And Bikram is about as close as you can get to that. But fire breathing and things like that can help. You need to do something more active. The same as if you're feeling crying, which is a wonderful way that your body releases negativity and toxins and all of those things, letting it out in a good way. But if you're feeling tearful, going to the sea and being in water actually is good for the release, but doesn't bring your energy up. So in fact, it's good if you need to feel that release, but you then need to do the opposite. So you don't want to do something like air or water when you're feeling watery. You need to do then something like earth that will then ground the energy back up. So understanding your body in these ways helps the energy flow. And it becomes like learning to drive. It sounds a lot at this moment, but it really isn't, because over your life, you've probably been figuring some of this out already. You know that there are times when you're like, oh, I feel so good. And yet, one of the particular ways that I work with women, and if you don't mind, I have a thing to just share that I'm about to do, which is I'm running for 11/11. I'm running a She Matters abundance container. Because for a lot of women, this exact thing is that they start to do, they've worked out, I feel good doing my yoga, and I feel good doing my meditation, and I feel good for these things. And I'm like, yeah, I feel good. And then I step out of that and I step into the world. So I step away from my soul, and instead of being me in the presence of others, I probably then first step off the mat. I stop being my soul. I maybe haven't got it for a minute. And then I go and do something completely different. And then I'll start interacting with people, and I'll see that my world hasn't changed yet. So maybe I'm still a slave to my bank account, or maybe I'm still having arguments with my partner, or maybe I still feel a whole load of disappointment about a relationship that I had in the past, or maybe I'm still carrying around, baggage from my parents. So you get this discord of like, oh, but these things really work, but it's not real life. I hear that a lot. People going, it's not real life, though. It's not reality. And the thing you have to teach is that reality is the thing that you were doing on the mat. Reality is that abundance flow that we talked about at the beginning. That is reality. Everything else is just old news. This is an extension. It's a wonderful extension, but it's past. We're living constantly in the past, constantly. So the now is even now still just it's a construct. So when you can tap into the real now, that energy, that abundance flow, where literally all dimensions, all timelines dissolve, because we only exist in this, everything dissipates. And then it's being able to learn how to move forward with that and not have this discord, because they're missing the key of stepping in from that place of their soul out into the world. So so the She Matters 11/11 abundance circle is happening exactly on the day 11/11, which is and I started doing the stuff yesterday, so you'll be able to find it on Instagram and Facebook and all the things, and it'll be on Rich, Sexy and Free and stuff. But if they want to come and join that will give them an insight into releasing some of those things and softening the edges, so that they can start to bring that abundance flow into more of their life, and then learning to turn up the dial, turn up the dial, turn up the dial.
Oh, I love this. I love all of this so, so much. There are so much advice and incredible words of wisdom, of honesty, of courage, of so much within this podcast episode. We're coming towards the end, Jo, and I would love for you to share, what is your one main piece of advice or final piece of advice you want to give everyone who's listening today, who, is interested in really tuning into their abundance and love? What would you say to them?
You are enough.
Mm.
You've always been enough. There's nothing wrong with you. Other people may have told you that, or behaved in a way from their space of disconnection to love, that made you feel you weren't enough. If this resonates with your soul, you're already on the right path. Just need a few more tools. You just need to be ready and brave enough to drop the illusion that you've used as a survival mechanism that doesn't serve you anymore. So to really be willing to drop maybe a dress that, I have to think of it like this, if maybe you've got a dress that you quite like, you feel kind of good in it, it's not a bad dress, maybe you invested in it, quite nice, you feel quite sexy, you feel slim or healthy or fit, or whichever way it wants to be, you feel good, and yet probably had to work quite hard for it. Sometimes you maybe have to work quite hard to keep fitting in it. So maybe you feel like, oh my God, oh God, I keep putting on pounds, or it makes you feel like a bit like Cinderella, the ugly sisters. You have to keep cutting your toes off to fit the shoe. Having the faith to know that it's okay to drop that dress. and recognize that there is something so much more luxurious, so much more couture in the fact that it's designed for you, not you trying to fit into something out of Fashion Week, but something that has been made to measure to your greatest self, already available. And it's just beyond your reach. Not because you can't have it, because you've got to be willing to let go first to realize that it's already there.
Amazing. Such great advice. Thank you so much, Jo. It's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, I'm in awe of everything that you shared today. And I think it's so powerful, but also so important to share this. And for those that are listening, please do go and connect with Jo. Go and follow her. She's got some incredible books as well that you'll be able to access. Jo, where can people connect with you and find you?
Well, Rich, Sexy and Free. So on all the Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the things, YouTube, Rich, Sexy and Free. or head over to richsexyandfree.com. You can find all the links there. The podcast is there. Anything that just takes you to the main website, which is jowarwick.com. But if you just head to Rich, Sexy and Free, that's sort of the brand. And if they want to find out about the She Matters Abundance Circle, absolutely, that will be there. So yeah, it's pretty easy. Just Rich, Sexy and Free is the way to find me. I have to say, this has been so fun, not just connecting with you, but I have loved every minute and everything I have channeled today to share with you as well. So much in delight to share with this. And I hope everyone, well, those who it resonates with in the harmonics enjoys it, and those who feel activated to enjoy that too, because that's been good for you.
Amazing. Jo, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I really hope that everyone that has listened to this podcast episode has enjoyed it and takes away, I think, probably so many golden nuggets and so many things to consider, me included there. But it's been an absolute pleasure. And I just want to thank everyone as well for tuning into today's podcast episode. Please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. And I will see you all again next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast with me, your host, Kaylee Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow and scale your dream six-figure or multi-six-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.